have the price on the internet, they're probably just confirming if you are playing fair or not. And if you give them, and they see what you're giving them is fair, they'll buy the car from you. I have seen people who paid me more money, and they brought me a letter, email from somebody else, and you know what, I don't want to go here. This guy was telling me this and this and this. When I talked to him, he was not really straightforward with me.
Do you give price to these consumers that have raised their hand and say, you know, I want a dealer to contact me, I would like a price quote, I would like an inventory check to see if you have this car? And I have said for a long time that that answer really depends on where you are geographically and what your competitive set is made up on.
We've tried to help dealers understand is that don't get that mixed up with you have to be the lowest price guy. You just have to answer the price question. You have to be competitive.
Our goal isn't to be the lowest. It certainly isn't. We want to be fair, and we also want to be extremely aggressive.
They care about fairness. And fairness need not be necessarily the best price. They care about somebody having been upfront with them, and they care about them having the feeling that while they may not have paid the lowest price, they sure didn't pay the highest price. That's what they really care about. And the internet is a terrific medium to exactly ensure that from a consumer's point of view.
We'll do an analysis on every vehicle before we price it.
And we'll make sure that we're competitive. Again, if we have competitive prices right out of the gate and great pictures, we're going to sell cars faster.
I don't see price as the biggest stumbling block. I see value. You know, our customers understanding the value of what they're getting.
Anyone in marketing will tell you that all customers are not the same. All right, so stop treating everyone with the same scale and learn to segment your customer base. There are some customers who are going to work on price, and you'll always get the guy who calls them and says, look, I've done my research, this is the invoice, this is the car I want, I'm willing to buy it today, I've got all credit, everything done, you have it or not, yes or no. You have to know what this customer is and say, yeah, sure, I have it, this is do the bottom sale.
We have a matrix at 80-10-10. And we know that 10% of the consumers on the internet are your laydowns. 80% of them just want a fair deal, a competitive price, and they want to be treated different. And 10% of them are your grinders. They're going to take your price, and they're going to grind you for every penny, and they're going to go to your competitor and do the same. And what tends to happen in the internet department is the internet department focuses on that 10% and treats all of the internet consumers like the grinders. And what we want to do is we want to shift that focus to focus on your 80%, the consumers that just want a fair and competitive price, but want to go through the internet process and to be treated different.
As the internet emerged, more people were looking for alternatives to the experience that they had out there. And we loved it because those customers were coming to us with a lot of knowledge. The transparency in information, in pricing, we were already doing that for the previous 10 years. Our adage was the customer can get that information, so why try to hide it? So, you know, we were full disclosure around, you know, the price, the equipment, competitors, and sold the value of the vehicle and the brand to those customers.
When people go online, they have a tendency to do a process that we call carring up. So when they get online and they start looking at that thing, they say, you know what, if I could get the V8 engine, I'm going with that. And you know, I'm always getting lost for whatever reason, so if I could get the one with navigation, I'd really rather have that. And if I could get the one with the sunroof and the leather package. So the process of the consumer has, when they go online, they have a tendency to start putting their wish list or their Christmas list on there, because what they're really looking for, they're hoping that for some reason the car of their dreams is going to come in at a price that they feel they can afford.
You don't have to give out your lowest price. You can just give out a competitive price if you give the consumer choices.
Offer an option, not too many options, but probably a good idea to offer a used car option up front if the customer isn't specific about exactly what they're looking for.
Instead of just sending one quote, the product that was being specifically requested, you might want to send a range where you're saying, you know, here's the information you requested based on the submission you had for that FJ Cruiser or whatever. But here's a couple of other alternatives. Here's some used product we have available. Here's a product that's not quite as expensive as that initial product that you've requested, just so that you have choices and can make an informed decision about the opportunities you have to buy.
You know, customer inquires about a vehicle, you've got to be prepared to go back with the information for the vehicle that they're inquiring about. Obviously, it's typically around something that you have in stock, not that they're normally going to buy that exact vehicle, but being able to give them the information that they want and then but also give them the options of some alternatives that might fit within the parameters of what they're looking for.
So smart dealers have realized that when the consumer says, hey, what's my best deal on the $29,000 Camry, they've also realized that let's put a quote in for the $25,000 Camry too. And while we're at it, we've got a pre-owned certified Camry that is $20,000 and it's only got 6,000 miles on it. Now all of a sudden, the consumer has variable choices, and it is already building a relationship with that consumer that says, this dealer has went above and beyond what I even asked for. I like this dealer.
Brand affection is high. So a lot of consumers that originally went online and filled out a lead for a Toyota ended up buying a Honda. So it's important that dealerships realize that and train their internet managers to sell beyond just their own product line and understand the importance of a competitor's product line, because they can assume that when they talk to that internet customer that they're also looking at other makes.
No, you don't have to win internet customers on price alone. You can do it by talking about your value story. Why should they buy it from me? Why should they buy it from my dealership? And why should they buy my product versus the product next door?
What our dealerships need to do is they need to learn how to be able to send appropriate emails that can answer the customer's questions, build their trust, exceed their expectations, but yet leave them wanting more. And that wanting more is, of course, the thing that bridges that from what needs to happen is from the internet to the telephone.
Individuals who are on the telephone making those appointments, their job, their sole purpose is to set the appointment. Secondarily is to get contact information, and certainly tertiary, third purpose is to be able to do well by the dealership. In other words, even if you don't sell a car, your goal needs to be to present the dealership in a good light.
They need to focus on what kind of a value proposition can I give that customer that says, I'm willing to give up this much time for this much value on the appointment. And if they can understand that balance factor and make it always a benefit to the consumer, they'll have a higher success rate.
The average dealer follows up with consumers for about 10 days. Now, looking at the buy cycle of the consumer, some people say it's 45, 50 days, somewhere up to 90 days. Regardless, it's much more than 10 days. So it's, what type of process do you have in place to stay in front of those customers so that they constantly know your dealership's name at the forefront of their mind when they're looking to finally pull the trigger and make a decision to buy a vehicle?
We need to follow up, and we need to use electronic tools to follow up. Our research still today tells us a new car lead that goes into a dealership today have an average maturity date till that person buys a car of up to 91 days. So we need to have continuous follow-up with prospects until that person either gets their tax refund or their inheritance check from Aunt Betty, or until their car breaks down or they get their title in the mail. Whatever the circumstances is, you never want to be out of sight, out of mind.
At one level, what really differentiates the successful dealer from the aspiring to succeed is the dealer that really puts a process in place that stays with that interested customer over time.
Are you email marketing those leads for not just a few weeks after the consumer submitted the initial lead, but are you email marketing them over and over and over until they tell you to stop?
If I paid for a customer, and if I get hold of a customer one time, unless he says unsubscribe, he's on my list forever.
I think it's about wowing the customer. And I think the internet gives the dealer an opportunity to really change the perception of many consumers when they're going to buy a car. They're apprehensive, they don't know what they're getting into, they're a little nervous, and then on top of that, now they're going through the internet, what's going to happen. And if a dealer comes back with great information and is professional and is friendly and gives them a completely different experience, they're going to be wowed and they're going to buy a car from that dealer.
I think what we're learning and dealerships are learning today is, regardless of whether it's an internet process or a traditional process, that it's the consumer-friendly process, and that dealerships that are spreading that consumer-friendly process across the whole entire dealership, regardless of whether the customer has made first contact via a lead, have come through the dealer's website or walked in the showroom floor, that to be competitive today, they need to have a consumer-friendly approach.
At the end of the day, everybody will be an internet customer, you know, and speaking with the Incredibles from Pixar, you know, if everybody's special, nobody's special anymore, right? So in some sense, in the moment that every customer turns out to be like an internet customer, then the distinction, and in a way that, you know, you could say either the sales floor just goes away or the internet department goes away. I mean, whatever of the two it is, it just means you have one way of dealing with customers, and that way ought to reflect both that sometimes people walk in, sometimes people come in through the internet, but they're all internet customers in some sense.
The point of the structure that you decide on is to execute the process that you have laid out as consistently and as regularly as possible. The single ISM model is probably the most prevalent in the industry. It utilizes a dedicated but separate salesperson on the showroom floor that handles the internet traffic from your various sources.
With a team ISM model, you have multiple internet sales managers that basically have leads round robin to them.
So you have multiple ISMs or multiple internet salespeople on the floor to scale the department for growth.
If you're going to hire an internet manager or look for somebody to handle your internet leads, A, you need to have someone who has great phone skills, and B, they need to know how to sell a car. As far as the technical applications or having internet savvy, those are less important today. You can teach them how to do that functionality, but they must know how to sell a car, and they must be able to give great phone skills.
The ideal internet person has got all those other qualities. He's great on the phone, embraces technology, and is great face-to-face.
We've had 3 and 4 people in an internet department in this store 6 months ago, and they just had too many leads each. You know, that magic number is about 125 to 150. Any more leads than that, you know, you're going to have the law of diminishing returns. They're just going to take the cream off the top, and you're not going to sell any more cars.
If they do the whole process, they can handle up to 125 to 150.
Yes.
And you would expect...
If you have a proper process in place, yes. Because I have seen since we implemented this BlackBerry in our group, I knew it was going to happen because I've done it before. They respond to customer within a minute. It's over. You pick up the phone, as a matter of fact, in BlackBerry, you simply go to the phone and press, you dial the customer. So you can send an email and call the customer within 5 minutes, done, over with. So if you can handle 10 leads a day, that's how much, 300 leads a month, or 200 leads, 20 days of working. He can handle. If you do it, if he's a good manager, he can handle up to 150, no problem.
The third structure that we saw was the BDC structure. Essentially, there's a separate business development center that is a separate department from the retail floor, and the leads come into the business development center for processing. The prescribed emails are sent out, the phone calls are made, and appointments are set. At that point in time, when the appointments are set, the lead is then passed on to the showroom floor for the actual sale of the vehicle.
That's where we hire a group of people, mostly clerical in style, and they handle the phone calls and go ahead and send the emails out. They get the customer to the showroom floor and then hand them over to a salesman to complete the sale. Pros and cons there, of course, CDC means you have to hire more people, you have to manage them, you have to give them high-speed internet access in your dealership, and then you have to give the salesman a commission on the sale. The pro side of it is that you get better control over the phone calls because it does take an average of 9.1 attempts to get a customer over the phone, and most salesmen have and struggle with that part of it. The other part of it is, of course, you get better timing on that. The average dealership today, salesman is most likely to be face-to-face with a client, usually between 4 and 7 o'clock in the evening. And that's usually the best time you can also catch a customer on the phone and set up tomorrow's appointment. So it solves that issue in the store.
The fourth structure that we saw was the reverse BDC. It still employs a separate and designated business development center with its own staff. However, the leads are processed through the showroom floor. The ISM handles the initial emails and phone call communications. If a vehicle sale does not result, the lead is moved to the business development center for long-term follow-up. If then an appointment is set, it is moved back to the retail floor for the sale of the vehicle.
We're getting email addresses from everybody too. And that way it would go into our BuzzTrack lead management tool, and then the automated emails and our follow-up systems would kick into place. We'd set appointments, they come in, we sell them cars.
We're seeing that most internet departments are getting larger and larger by the day, and more customers are doing that. Fewer are walking into the showroom floor cold, and that the retail departments are struggling and getting smaller and smaller. If we can train all of our salespeople to take email addresses and follow up with customers and send them broadcasts and function as an internet manager, I think we're going to grow this industry a lot faster.
Essentially, these dealerships are taking this knowledge and just saying then that to be an internet store, the professional salesperson needs to be able to handle an incoming sales call, handle walk-in traffic, and handle an internet lead just the same. So they're trained on all of the processes, procedures, and skills pertaining to each different type of medium that the customer comes in on.
There's a conflict between whether you have an internet department or you make everybody on your sales force be internet savvy. And I tend to find myself coming out in that later group.
Dealerships are going to have not just an internet manager or an internet salesperson, but in more and more stores across the country, that they're going to have to really turn into stores that the majority of their customers will be attracted via an internet model or an internet marketing medium.
We're in the process of blending the departments so they become one. We want everyone to end up being an internet salesperson.
If you have a dealership where you have everybody is participating, I call it an internet store. We have those stores in Florida that everybody participate regardless if they want it or not. We do not ask the salesman, would you do this? We're not asking them, we're telling them this is part of the job. They will get equal amount of internet leads and we will see how they perform.
It's one dealership. Everybody should be accomplished enough to work with leads, be it phone, walk-in, internet, referrals. I mean, it doesn't matter.
We have seen high ratio of closing, and also we have seen consistency across the board in the dealership. When the customer walks in the door, now they all train how to handle the internet customer. It makes a difference.
When we talk about 3 pillars to internet success, there's also one cultural differentiation that is common in all these stores, and that exactly is that harmony that's got to exist. Everyone has to embrace the internet customer. That is not a niche market anymore. It's everybody, virtually. Most of your customers aren't going to tell you that they've been online, but they have, regardless of where you are in the country and what franchise you sell. So getting your people all in line and getting the culture of your dealership all getting along and working together towards one goal is really the leader's job. And that, I don't know that we saw a store out there that was incredibly successful online that had dissension between the retail floor and the internet department, if there was in fact a differentiation between them, because a lot of them, they're the same.
And what the mistake is that we see oftentimes is the dealers say, you know, I want to do this, and they write a check, and they hand it to somebody, and in their mind, they're putting that check in the checkbox. Okay, now I'm going to be online. I'm going to sell cars online now because I just wrote this check. That's where the work begins, right? So the dealers have to realize that they have to roll up their sleeves and they have to really, really want this, and they have to drive that operational change at all the levels within the dealership.
Unless you get them to buy in, they're never going to buy in. There's always going to be this 2 groups within a dealership, and the dealerships will never realize the true benefits of the internet.
Oftentimes it goes right back to getting mid-level management bought in. They have to really want to support this. So what's the way to make them support it? It's pretty simple. They're all paid from the bottom line. Show them how this will affect their bottom line positively, and take that threat out of it, and they'll line up behind it pretty quickly.
The faster we do that, the more we're going to improve the industry and create a follow-up and more professional mechanisms to accommodate today's consumer.
As a dealer, you yourself, all I can do is give you the facts and the figures, the information, show you what's going on out there, and then you have to decide as a dealer. A dealer at its very essence is a businessman. He or she is an individual who's invested in a business, and they operate a business for profit. They have a lot of decisions to make. Their level of involvement in digital marketing is just one of those many decisions.
It's clear. The internet has risen from a small niche market to become an integral part of our lives. Fortunately, leveraging the internet is really quite simple. Just as we dealers have mastered our presence in our physical communities, we must now master that same presence in similar ways in our virtual communities. Ask yourself 4 questions. Is your organization properly structured to seize the opportunity? How well are you executing the 7 process points? Are you systematically tackling the 14 marketing disciplines that will grow your business? And lastly, who will lead the changes necessary for your organization to reach its true potential? Success in our industry is not an accident. We must have a plan for success. And like any era of change, this is an era of opportunity. As smart business operators, we must evolve and adapt quickly, and those who do so will harvest the greatest rewards our industry has to offer.